Hi Gemini, welcome. This is your July 2024 horoscope. I do have to tell you before we get into the horoscope that this horoscope does not have all of the aspects that are happening in July. This is because if we're to do that, we will be here for quite a while. There are really a huge amount of aspects happening in July. I was quite surprised going through the list. There's a lot of like trines and sextiles, especially with Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. For the sake of time, however, I did pick the most prevalent ones, the ones that are going to be the most impactful, the most intense, and we are definitely going to talk about those in this horoscope, so don't worry about that. The first aspect that I would like to chat about for July is Neptune going retrograde. This is going to happen on July 2nd, and Neptune will stay direct until all the way in December of this year. For you, Gemini, Neptune is going retrograde in your 10th house. And it has actually been in your 10th house since 2011, so quite a good chunk of time. And since 2011, Neptune in your 10th house has been asking you to reconsider your dreams when it comes to your career. You might have been looking at how you can incorporate some of those dreams, make them into a reality. And you have also been taking a look at which ones are maybe a little bit unrealistic and that you need to scrap. And now that Neptune is retrograde, it's asking you to reflect. Go within, reflect on any of the actions that you've taken around this theme, and whether you need to change course. If you do find you need to change course, you already are like, yes, I know exactly what I need to do. I would just advise you to wait until December when Neptune goes direct. It's usually better to wait when the planet goes direct to be able to shift from that more internal reflective state to more of that outward doing state. On July 6th, we have a new moon in Cancer, which for you, Gemini, is your 2nd house. A new moon represents a new beginning. And in your 2nd house, you might especially be finding a new financial opportunity. You might be starting something new that brings some money in. But you might also be starting a new sort of regime that helps with your self-respect and your self-confidence. You might be setting up something that allows you to be more self-sufficient, that you might remove something that is maybe holding you back, that maybe is making you too reliant on others. A couple of days later, on July 10th, we have an interesting aspect happening between the Sun and Saturn, and Venus and Neptune. So the Sun is trining Saturn and Venus is trining Neptune. And they're highlighting for you, Gemini, your 2nd and 10th house axis. The way I really see this manifesting for you is that your newfound self-respect, the actions you're taking to be self-sufficient are making it much more easier for you to stand out in your career. They're making it much more easier for you to be confident, to show up, to do the difficult things in your career. Just a day later, Venus enters Leo. So on July 11th, Venus will enter your 3rd house. As it does that, it also opposes Pluto, which is in Aquarius. You are going to hear a lot more about Pluto throughout this July horoscope. This is because Pluto is quite central in July. Not only is it opposed by Venus on the 11th, but later on it's also opposed by the Sun as the Sun enters Leo. And it's also really quite activated during the full moon in Capricorn, which we'll talk about later as well. What this might mean, though, this opposition between Venus and Pluto, it might feel like you're feeling tugged in 2 different directions. These 2 different directions for you, Gemini, are between staying open-minded, staying curious, questioning, exposing yourself to lots of different ideas and lifestyles, versus choosing one and holding firmly to it. choosing a belief system, a lifestyle, a way of being, and holding on to it super firmly, but also maybe even imposing it on others as well. So you might feel this tension between, okay, well, yes, anything can technically be the truth, and it doesn't matter how others live their life. It's all good. We can all choose. And then on another side, you might also feel like, but no, this is definitely wrong and nobody should be doing this. So you might really feel that tug of war. On July 14th, we have one of the other bigger events, astrological events in July, which is a conjunction between Mars and Uranus. This is a conjunction, Gemini, that's happening in your 12th house of spirituality, of compassion, of our inner world. The Mars and Uranus conjunction can result in some explosiveness. It can result in being courageous with standing out from the group, being courageous and showing our unique self. And the interesting thing for you, Gemini, because this is happening in quite an internal house, it might not reflect to the outside world as much, this event, but there might be still a lot happening internally. You might be feeling quite explosive in terms of your inner world. And you might also be sort of wrestling with this idea of compassion and spirituality and how you can add your unique twist and your unique individual way of approaching that. A couple of days later, on the 20th of July, Mars will leave your 12th house and enter your first house. So Mars in Gemini is going to feel quite scattered for all of the zodiac signs. I think for you, especially Gemini, it might feel nice because it's going from a more concealed house to a more outward and expressive house. So you might feel a new zest, a new energy coming to you. The word of caution I've been giving to all of the zodiac signs is to be careful not to spread themselves too thin. I feel like hopefully though, as a Gemini, you are slowly finding your way in the balance between doing a lot of stuff versus overdoing it. So hopefully I don't need to reiterate that idea or that pitfall to you, but I'll just leave it right there to keep in mind as Mars goes through your first house. It is on July 21st that we have the full moon in Capricorn. And this is the full moon that I was saying has also quite a Plutonian influence. So firstly, the moon is at 29 degrees of Capricorn, just 2 degrees away from Pluto, who is in the first degree of Aquarius. But also we have Mars trining Pluto, again, bringing in this Plutonian emphasis. A full moon always represents a revelation or an awareness, something coming to light. And what I think is coming to light for all of us during this full moon has to do with the Pluto in Capricorn transit of the last 20 years. And the reason why I say this is because, first of all, the full moon is happening at 29 degrees of Capricorn. But second of all, Pluto is going retrograde and making its way closer and closer to that degree. As a matter of fact, later in the year, Pluto is going to return back to Capricorn at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So this new piece of information, this awareness, I don't necessarily see it as a negative or dramatic type of information. Although Pluto is involved. And the reason I say this is because we also have Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune involved in this full moon. It sort of should soften some of that intensity of Pluto. What I do think this awareness or this revelation will be about is sort of that missing puzzle piece that helps us finally see the full picture of the last 20 years of Pluto in Capricorn. That final puzzle piece that makes it make sense, that makes us aware of why we had to go through what we went through, how it has made us into exactly the person we need to be for right here and right now. And for you, Gemini, Pluto for the last 20 years was in your 8th house, teaching you about the power of vulnerability, the power of trust, the power of openness, the power of depending on others, and how scary that can feel and how vulnerable it can make us. So there might be something around that theme again, a little piece that you may have overlooked that sort of reveals itself to you on this full moon. I do also want to point out that the Sun will enter Leo and oppose Pluto the day after, on the 22nd. Because this will happen the day after, I feel like the effect of the full moon might be a little bit more outdrawn. That exact opposition between Sun and Pluto will be a little bit later, like a day later. So I do think that perhaps the effects will be drawn out from the full moon. For the opposition between the Sun and Pluto, I do recommend reflecting back on what happened when Venus opposed Pluto earlier in the month. It's highly likely that some of the same themes will come back up again. Before we close off the horoscope, Gemini, I have one more transit I wanted to talk about. And this is the sextile between the Sun and Mars, happening on July 25th. Mars is in your 1st house and the Sun is in your 3rd house. And the way this could play out for you, Gemini, is that all of the work that you've been putting into expressing yourself, into putting yourself into positions of leadership, standing up, not being afraid of being seen, all of these actions that you've been taking are actually making it easier for you to communicate. All of a sudden, you are able to find the right words. You're able to influence people with your words. You are able to get across what you're thinking and what you wanted to say in a way that others understand in a much easier way. And I can also see this manifesting as you being able to play a much bigger role in your local community, you being recognized by your neighbors for the wonderful neighbor that you are, you being recognized by your siblings for everything that you bring into that relationship as well. So overall, Gemini, there is a bit of career focus, there's a bit of inner world spirituality focus, but also some focus on self-respect and communication. So really, a whole bunch of things for you to enjoy in the month of July. So I hope you are looking forward to that. And one more thing I wanted to add before I let you go, Gemini, is that I am doing a giveaway. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving one of you lovely people a free reading. So if you want to make sure you grab a chance to win that free reading, then make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me, Gemini, and I hope to see you again soon.